Record. All right, everybody. Welcome to ERA Live. Thanks for being with us today. We have two very special presenters today. Walter Tobin, who's the outgoing CEO of ERA, and Eddie Smith, the incoming CEO of ERA. Before we get started, audience members, please be sure that you are muted. If you would like to ask a question, please type your question in the chat box and we will get to your questions when and if we can. This session is being recorded. We will post the recording on our website and our YouTube channel within 24 hours. So today's session is going to be fun. We'll learn more about Eddie and Walter. You can start. Take it away.
Good. Thanks very much, Claire. I just have a few remarks before we turn it over to Eddie. To all the folks on this call, both DRA members and not yet members, your commitment to advancing best practices in the electronic components industry and your spirit of volunteerism have consistently set ERA apart. From educational forums to the successful golf tournaments, virtual networking meetings, to impactful charity initiatives, your passion has been the driving force behind our progress, even as our industry faces tough challenges ahead. As I prepare to step into retirement, I want to thank each one of you, the ERA staff, the ERA Executive Committee, our Board of Directors, and the 800 members across the Americas for your trust, support, and partnership over the past decade. Together, we've navigated change and created a strong foundation at ERA for the future. Today's about new beginnings, introducing a leader who not only understands our industry, but who truly understands your needs and aspirations. Our incoming CEO, Eddie Smith, joins us with great industry experience, both as a C-level distribution executive at Avnet to the CEO of SMTC, a major contract manufacturer, who use reps to drive their customer base and reach. Eddie will bring both a fresh perspective and deep familiarity with our mission. So without further ado, I want to introduce Ed Smith, the new CEO of ERA. Eddie?
Thank you, Walter. And it's my pleasure to be with everybody today. And, I told Walter when I took this job, the guy who replaces a legend is always the guy that only lasts 1 or 2 years before they throw him out. If you see in, big college sports, big professional sports, whenever you have a legend, it's very hard to emulate that. And so I will try not to emulate what Walter did and do it with my own style. But if I just have half the results Walter has, I think that's pretty good. And when I look at ERA before Walter came in, ERA today it's more relevant than it's ever been. And so I would use that word as, Walter made it relevant, made it have some value. And in doing that, it's led me to believe that, hey, what's the next step in that value? And so all of you are going to get the opportunity to have some say in that value. So you'll get from us in the next week a survey, and it's going to ask you how you think we're doing today, what we can do more of, what we can do less of, what will be valuable to you. And it's really funny because when I took the job, before I took it, I spoke to some reps. After I took the job, I spoke to other reps, and I asked them, what do you value? And it's really funny because not everybody values the same thing at the same rate. So we're going to do a lot of different things. We're going to ask you questions, have you involved. As Walter talked about, volunteering to be on committees. We would appreciate anybody to give any time in doing that. And, somebody one day said, what do you know about the reps? And I would tell you, I have not worked for a rep company, but I've worked for other companies. So let me start with a little bit of my history. I started for W.W. Granger, a big distribution firm, moved from W.W. Granger over to Avnet, but not on the electronic side. Actually started on their industrial side. Many people don't know that Avnet used to sell car parts and musical instruments and trophies. And one by one, I sold those businesses off for Avnet. And I was the last executive standing in that group. And Rory Valley said, why don't you learn about this electronics? And what I never understood about the electronics, I moved to LA to learn about them. I went from selling things at 30% margin to things at 7% margin. And you have this very technical Intel chip, and you're making 7%, and I could sell you a trophy and make 30%. That's not very technical, or a quarter to 20. So it's really interesting that the margin is actually less selling a technical product than selling a non-technical product. If you look at Granger's margins today, they're about 3 to 4 times Avnet and Arrow. And you might say, why does that matter? The reality is it matters because the less money they'll pay distributors, the less money they'll pay reps, the less money that they'll pay others. And so the value chain gets condensed by all of that. So then I stayed with Avnet for about 8 years and then took my first CEO job at a company called Semtech. And that was a pretty wild ride. I was young, 30s, took a public company that was on a New York Stock Exchange, took the stock from 38 cents to $15 and lost control of the company. And we sold that company to CTS. So the old company out of Indiana, Chicago telephone system. They bought it for our manufacturing facilities and our facility over in Asia, in Thailand. And interesting enough, I always tell young people how you leave companies is important because you never know what's going to happen. And, the day I announced the sale, Phil Gallagher called me up and said, why don't you come back and run sales and operations, which I then did for another 12 years. Um, New leadership came in. And, as I would tell you, I don't work for people I don't like. Um, and so I decided to leave Avnet. And after 20 years, in the age of 55, I decided to retire out of Avnet. Uh, wrote a book, was doing some consulting, and ran into this SMTC company. And they asked me to be the CEO, and I only did that. Really, it was an interesting thing. I wanted my staff from Avnet to be able to leave Avnet and leave the leadership there. And so they came on, and I took 7 people from Avnet, and we went to SMTC. Sold that. Also took that stock from 80 cents to about $6. And during COVID, everybody got nervous that manufacturing would shut down forever, that in-person things would happen. And so we sold it to a private equity firm and lasted about 2 years. And then I moved on to become chairman of the board there. Started in the staffing business and decided I didn't want to travel that much. And so I spoke to Walter at EDS, had a great conversation. Walter told me his job was easy. I thought, oh, that's great. So I'll take it. And then I found out that he lied to me. And it's not that easy. Um, and so, we got a lot of work to do, a lot of things to do, putting on the show in February, getting prepared for EDS and other things takes time and some work. So that's kind of the history. What I plan to do at ERA is continue to do a lot of the same things that Walter did, have STEP, have CULT, have a lot of those same programs, the White Pin Initiative and some of those other things, um, but also try to figure out how do we prove our value to the manufacturers, to the ones that currently use us so that they don't stop using us, and to ones that don't use us, how do we go and show them the financial value? And there's some work to be done there. I know a lot of people have done some different surveys and put out some different results, but very little of it ever goes to actual pure statistics. What happened when TI went away from the rep? Well, I can tell you they have less customers today than they had when they had reps. Same with ADI, same with Intel, same with others. But nobody puts that into quantities and quantifies it and puts it out into the marketplace. And I think we need to do that as reps to show our value in the marketplace. So I plan to go and start getting some of those numbers together. It won't be the first time I've done it. Anybody that saw me speak at the executive conference, I put numbers together then about the lost commissions over the last 20 years, and I'll go kind of put something like that together to kind of show them what they are actually losing by not having reps, right? So there is a loss when people get rid of reps, and there is a loss when people take their distribution network down from 3 to 2 to 1. There's a loss in the industry. There's a loss in dollars and cents paid for commissions and people, and there's a loss in the number of customers who get serviced and then have to go online to do their servicing. So we got some work to do there. So I will end with, I will go send out a survey, take your input, and then I look forward to speaking at the meeting in February about what we're going to do going forward, what's different, what's the same, and what does ERA look like in the future.
Good. Thanks, Eddie. Let me remind the attendees that if you have a question, put it on the chat, and we'll be monitoring the chat, and we'll be, during different breaks of the session, we'll be feeding the questions to Eddie. So And I guess the first question is, you certainly worked with ERA, as a customer and industry partner. What did you observe from the outside that made you want to lead this team? You sort of maybe talked about that just a little bit. And what excites you most about joining us now?
Yeah, I think that the thing that excited me, first of all, the relationships that I've built with some of the reps are some of the best relationships I have, even better than people who worked with me or around me and peers. I'm also really, really proud to say that all of you, your success and failure is your actual personal business success or failure, right? Your business. And so, any way I can help make the industry, I believe I'm a big believer, and I've written a book about giving back more than you take from this world. And when I saw the impact, Walter, that you had on the ERA and making it relevant again and doing good things, I thought, this would be really cool to go take this to the next step and next level and how to go do that. So, it's my way of giving back to the industry that's given me so much.
Thank you. So, the members of ERA and the staff, we've really built a culture of openness, learning, and service. Whether it's through the different educational webinars that we run, our volunteer efforts, or different golf tournaments. How do you plan to nurture, that community spirit of volunteerism and encourage even more engagement uh, within ERA?
Yeah. So one of the things I think you did really well, you were very visible, right, to both the suppliers and OEMs and to the rep firms. And I want to continue to be that visible person, right? Um, and one of the interesting things is the face to face type conversations. You can't replace those, right? The one on ones where you meet somebody at a golf event or you meet somebody at an ERA local meeting. The stronger we make the local the ERA chapters, the stronger we'll be overall and national, right? So going into them, hearing what people have to say, taking advice from different people. It's many people on this call I've spoken to since I've taken a job, and they've given me their advice, and I'm going to take all of that, collate it, and say, what are we capable of doing? What can we do, and what should we do? And then I'll spend time with the team, Claire and Kate and Natalie and Karen and the whole team, and we'll say, okay, how does that fit into what we're capable of doing and timing and all of that, and do those things. But clearly, no doubt about it, I think having FaceTime with people and getting input is important.
Yeah. Thank you. Uh, so Eddie, we're in an industry that the profit margins are tight, both in distribution, commission margins are tight with the reps. The landscape is shifting really fast. What are the steps that you believe ERA should take, either near term or long term, to help our members remain competitive and relevant?
Yeah, so I think there's two issues, right, that come into that when I think about it. When the commissions get cut or a supplier takes accounts direct and the commissions get cut, it's harder to get good people to go do these jobs, right? We're looking for engineering talent coming out of school, and it gets harder and harder when you have less and less dollars to do that. So the question has to become, how do we stop? And I've posed this question many times in the industry, the degradation of the commissions for the manufacturers reps from the companies that think, I don't need reps or I only need them for certain marketplaces. We need to go sell our value, but not only to the business people and the salespeople, but also to the financial people in some of these companies. And we can't do that if we don't have information, we don't have data to go present in front of them. So many of what I see in the value of the rep, a lot of these things that we have on our website and those, all those tools, Walter, add up to value. And the question is, how do we show people to use the hover map? How do we show them to use search AI? How do we get people to actually make these things relevant and capable of providing value?
Good. Claire and Kate, do we have any questions on the chat? I can't see the chat.
Yeah, Doug Canterbury has a good question. Doug, if you want to maybe unmute and ask your question to Eddie.
You want me to ask Doug's question for him?
I can, well,
Doug, you
No,
on?
Eddie, sorry about that. Yeah, no, first of all, Ed, welcome aboard. I think this is exciting to have you join us. I think Walter, as you said at the very beginning, he re-innovated and reignited the ERA for many of us. So following him is definitely following in big footsteps. But my question, Ed, is what if you look at the short term, what are the first 3 to 5 objectives you're going to be tackling for the ERA and for the reps themselves?
Yeah, so the first objective, Doug, is getting the show in February and getting the right content for the show in February, right? Because that's the biggest show of the year. You got to make sure there's the right content and capability. The second one is to gather up the information by either using the survey and in one-on-one conversations of what's valuable, what's not valuable, what should we do more of, what should we do less of, how do we actually make all of these things we do, people use them, right? When I look at the statistics on a website like Search AI, very few people actually use it. When I look at the hover map, really very few people use it. And the question is if it's a value, then how do we train people to use it? Or how do we add enough value into it that people want to use it? Those are the first one or two I can think of. We will sit down early October with the board and walk through probably the top five, 90, 180, and then 1 year plans, Doug, and then come out during a February conference and talk about those plans.
Yeah, no, we look forward to it. We're looking forward to a great conference, so we're excited.
Yeah, I
Thanks,
would tell you that I already have the 3 to 5 already ironed out, but Doug, we haven't had enough conversations. And, Walter has his ideas, and I've sat with Walter, and we're going to sit again this next Wednesday. But I just want to make sure we get feedback from not only the rep firms, but I'd love to get some feedback from the OEMs that use reps on what's good or bad. I know what I used when I was doing the EMS stuff and how reps fit into our strategy. Without reps, we would about 80% of our business, Doug, went through rep firms, right? So, they were a very important part of our business. But I'd like to hear from some of the other OEMs. What are they looking for in reps? How does that, counter to what we can do in terms of training and other information we can get out into the marketplace?
Good.
I'll
Thanks,
end with
Doug.
this, guys. Yeah,
Go ahead.
no, Walter, I was just going to say, for anybody that hasn't been around Ed Smith, you're going to meet one of the most determined individuals I've ever been around. When he puts his mind to something, it's an all-in approach. So I think we're very fortunate to have you, Ed. And I just think that the industry is going to really embrace some of the things that you're going to bring to the party because of your influence and the people that you know. So I think that's going to be very impactful for us.
Yeah, the question, Doug, one of the questions that even in my mind is how do we grow the industry from where it is to get bigger, right? So there's more commission dollars available, more sales dollars available for the OEMs. How do we go do that? I think that's pretty important. So, as I go, I'll lean on people like yourself and others who are on this call. I don't want to call them out and embarrass them, but there are other people that I've already reached out and said, "Hey, tell me about this, tell me about that," so I can understand. So I think by mid October, and by the time we get into February, October we'll have a pretty good 3 to 5. But by the time we get into February, we'll actually have a plan, a 1 year plan going further out.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Doug. So, Eddie, ERA is always prioritized knowledge sharing. We host forums. We're hosting our STEP training in a couple of weeks. We've given out internships, supporting interns for the reps. I know it's only been a couple of weeks, but what sort of new educational opportunities or programs do you see us trying to champion for our members?
Yeah, it's probably too early for me to say here's new programs. I think the ones we have are pretty good. The first question is why doesn't everybody use all those programs? The second question is, for $395 in a STEP program, why don't we have 1,000 people or 500 people sign up for it? Why do we only have hundreds? Because the reality is to get sales training for $395, this is your livelihood, and to not get some good training from people who probably would get paid a lot more given this training. The question has to be, what do we have to do to make people use some of the tools we already have before we go out and start new tools that people say, "Wow, that's really cool," but then don't use it. For sure.
Right. So Ed, we have a chapter structure. We have 21 chapters, and our chapter leaders, many of them on this call, are volunteers. They run our chapters, they volunteer and give, the people that are volunteering for our conference committee give us precious time and industry DNA. You know, how do you see yourself supporting and recognizing, these precious volunteers, so they feel valued and inspired, if you will?
Yeah, so part of how I'm here is because I was a volunteer, right? I started on the board of ECIA. I got to meet first. It was NITA. It wasn't even ECIA when I first joined on that board, and I went through the whole process of they were trying to put everything together into one. But I got to meet a lot of people I wouldn't traditionally meet, and I think one of the things about volunteering is you get to meet competitors, peers, and then you get to meet people that you eventually may have a relationship that is actually of some value. You may meet an OEM that you hadn't met before. You may meet other people. So volunteering for me is a great way to network, right? That's the first. The second part of volunteering is, we all make our livings out of this industry. And if we can make it better by volunteering and doing those things, my question always is, why wouldn't we do that? And why wouldn't we want to do that? The local chapters that are the strongest are the ones that have the most volunteers, right? So no one person gets too taxed. They have people doing multiple different things. And then you have some chapters in some markets that don't even have a chapter. And so we got to go figure out on those markets, is there a way to go get a chapter started? What value is it? And maybe they just don't understand how to work with each other. And maybe we can help facilitate some of that. But, one of the reasons that ECAA could not buy ERA or merge them, and they wanted to do it, and I think it would have been very dangerous for ERA to be merged. Right? We focus on the value of manufacturers reps. ECAA is focused on the value of distributors. I think putting that together, we may lose, the goodness of ERA. And so one of the ways to keep that from happening clearly is the local chapters, right? ECA doesn't have local chapters. They don't know how to deal with local chapters. And so I think if we continue to make them stronger and stronger, we make ourselves stronger in those marketplaces. And besides being stronger in those marketplaces, we make the national group stronger and stronger also.
Good. Thanks. Claire and Kate, any questions on the chat?
Mike Swenson has a great question. Mike, please unmute.
Hey, Eddie, great seeing you. Thanks for taking the job. Really look forward to working with you. My question is, and you've been, especially with your distribution experience, you've been in the room with suppliers that have either, gone direct or housed some accounts, and maybe you've heard the reasons why. I guess my question is, what are some of your thoughts? I think you've answered some of that already with the calculator, getting to the finance people, but just on how do we address this? Just from your perspective, from what you've seen with your experience.
Yeah, so this might be a little controversial to say, Mike, but I'll say it because everybody knows it. They just don't like to say it. The distributors create demand identification, right? They don't have the access to the factory deep enough to do demand creation. And so a lot of suppliers, once they've won over a particular socket or some customer, they go, oh, we need to make it a house account because it's going to be too much money or to this, or we have enough people in that market that we can do it ourselves. And what they find out over time, and they don't like to admit this on the sales side, but the financial guys said, well, that'll save us this amount of money. The real issue is then they don't have as many feet on the street calling on other customers for them. So they actually lose the tail, or what I would call the middle of the tail. Those customers that are relevant that wind up ultimately getting bought by big companies just for their technology, right? And nobody ever does an analysis on that because the financial guys are never going to say, well, we screwed up by taking that account direct. They're never going to say that. And the sales leader is not going to take on the financial people. I think we need to do a better job showing our value across the whole spectrum of supplier, not just the sales organization or the regional manager. Because no regional manager wants to take on his CFO and say, no, I need that. I need to go do that. No, I don't want you to go do that. If I used an example, and I'll just use it on the distribution side because it's a little bit easier. When Microsemi was being bought by Microchip, they killed reps, they killed distributors, they went down to one distributor and no reps. And and when I sat with Jimmy P and asked him, why did you actually do this? He said, I made $64 million that year on it. Microchip bought me by 20 times earnings. I made an extra $1 billion in the sale by doing that, right? So in his deluded mind, now if he was going to keep the company for 5 years, he probably wouldn't have done that because that $64 million would have went away over time, right? Those customers would have went away. They would have been sold other products. But the reality is, I don't think people think long term, or we can show statistics, or we do a good job showing our value over a long time. We do it quarter to quarter, and I think it needs to be a much longer view of how things work.
Good. Thanks. Mike, anything, a follow-up?
No, I appreciate your perspective. Thanks, Eddie.
Right,
No,
thanks.
no problem. Thank you, Mike.
Claire and Kate, any other questions?
Sophia Wang. Hi, Sophia. Do you want to unmute and ask Eddie your question?
Hello.
Hello,
Hello,
how
Ed.
are you?
I'm good. How are you? I have a question for you. As a manufacturer, we just joined the ERA. What new support would we expect from ERA in helping to strengthen the connection between us and the reps?
Yeah, so I think it's that communication bridge that we can do for that ERA can do for somebody like yourself, helping you find the right partners in each of the markets, helping you understand the DTAM or TAM in a market using the hover maps that we have, answering any questions in a particular market that you may have that you may not want to go to a particular rep or whatever. I think it's the communication link between you and the rep we can help strengthen. And then for your company, we can help doing training in terms of sales training and different things. And then, clearly recruiting new reps as you're interested in a particular market, we can help give you some guidance there.
Thank you.
Sophia, welcome to ERA. Delighted to have you. Claire, any other questions on the chat?
Steve Cholis. Hi, Steve. Do you want to unmute and ask Eddie your question?
I do. If I didn't ask a question, I'm sure I would have heard from Walter and Ed. Ed, I just can't tell you how happy I am, to take the reins from Walter for all that he's done. And you are definitely a loud voice. You speak the truth. You're controversial, and you lay it out. And I just as much as Walter did, maybe in a different tone. A couple of questions for you, real quick. First of all, I want to commit EE Tech Group to any research you need done to engineers to validate the value and assurance of need of reps to your suppliers. So I'm putting that out there for you. Secondly, do you see any change or momentum building since, and maybe I've got this wrong, but I think I understand it properly. Rep organizations are the gatekeeper, if you will, or the approval vetter for design wins. Do you see that elevating more? Is there more can be done to help distributors specifically understand that and maybe support it in a bigger way?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Steve, because as you know, right, some of the big companies when they went and destroyed their go to sales market and changed it to single distribution and no reps, right? They got rid of all the demand creation, right? So when you actually look at the demand creation numbers overall, they're significantly down. Right. And is it down because people are designing less? Probably not. It's down because less is being identified and less is being paid for. Right. And they get away from that. And I'm not surprised by this because I think 5, 7, 10 years ago, whenever I spoke, I said this was going to happen. And this is, unfortunately what goes on. Right. Companies are trying to make more money and they take it from different places. If people don't stand up and say, we can't just do it for that price. It's a zero-sum game at the end, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think the one thing that's really important that the rep gives that the manufacturer doesn't have is they have feet in the street. They know the customer. They have relationships. They know if the design win was legitimate or not legitimate. on the demand creation side, right? The suppliers are too far away from the customers today to make those decisions on demand creation. So they really need that demand creation to come from the local rep. And you know, as I always used to say, this is really pretty funny. I used to say, a distributor is an extension of a manufacturer, right? And a manufacturer's rep's an extension, but they do two different things, right? So when McDonald's wanted to come out with salad, every franchisee said, "I don't want salad. I don't want salad. We're a hamburger joint. We don't sell salad." Well, you know who the largest seller of salad in the United States is today? It's McDonald's. Because with every kid that goes in there for a burger, the mother or the father want a salad. And so, you know, our job ultimately, right, and the manufacturer's rep is to do the things that the supplier should have done, but they don't have the people in the marketplace to do it. And if that means approving the demand creation, that means doing the demand creation and approving it there.
Excellent. Thanks, Eddie. I'll give the mic back, Walter.
Thanks, Steve. So, Ed, you're stepping into the CEO role with a decade of continuity, if you will, and we're 50-plus-year-old association. What message would you give to the employees of ERA and our members who might feel a little anxious about this transition?
Yeah, it's funny. Everybody was very anxious at the very beginning. My first week, I got the staff together in Austin, and we went through what everybody does and how I think about things. And I don't think there's going to be any tremendous change. Walter's done a great job, and I'm not looking to. It's not like tearing down a house and rebuilding it. That's not necessary. So it's, probably putting on a roof when the roof isn't doing the job anymore, or putting on paint when the paint fades. But the reality is we don't have to recreate ERA. I think when Walter came in, he had to go recreate ERA, make it relevant again, make it valuable. I think for us is to figure out what is valuable, what should we stop doing, what should we do more of, and how to become really so much value that people focus all their time on ERA if you're a manufacturer's rep. Because today, let's be honest, some of the reps belong to more than one organization. And the question has to be, that's expensive. Why wouldn't we want that money, and if we can provide the value?
Good, thanks. So, Eddie, one of the big questions that I know the staff had and some of our members have, do you want to be called Ed or Eddie?
I tell people call me a lot worse than both of those. I'll take either one. I'm comfortable with either one.
Okay.
As long as you don't call me some of the names
okay.
Steve Choles has called me in my life.
So, Ed, tell us something about you that maybe people don't know.
Oh, there's so much here. I would say, most people don't know me on the outside of the business, and I think Doug said it well. I'm a pretty hard charging person in business. People don't know I'm as nice a person as I am outside of the business. And if anybody wanted to read those type of stories, there was a Pulitzer Prize article written, about myself and my first wife that won a Pulitzer Prize from 1995. You can look it up, pulitzerprize.org. Look up Jim Dwyer, and it'll tell you that there's a whole nother side of me that's much calmer and gentler than what people see in business, for sure.
We certainly have a lot of respect and affection and love for you, Ed, with your history. So, God bless. So, Eddie, are you available to travel? I know that you're at an airport right now. We have a lot of chapters on the call. Are you available to go to the chapters and meet with the local members and press the flesh?
I am willing. Any chapter leader that reaches out and says, "Hey, here's an agenda of things for us to do," I'd be more than happy to come out and sit with you and go through that agenda. And as I get back the surveys, and if there's specific chapter issues, Walter, I'll get all the leaders of all the chapters together and probably create a committee of the chapter leaders to say, okay, if this is what you need from us, right? So I do expect to hear some of the questions on the survey are about the local chapters. And so if there's stuff about a specific chapter, I'll go out and share that with them. If it's an overall, then we'll go out and put a plan together how to strengthen the overall chapters.
Good. So Eddie, if you could sort of take a time machine and go forward a year from now and say, this is what we accomplished together. What would make you most proud at the end of your first year that you got done? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think if the people that are on this call see the February meeting as being as good or better than it used to be, and that there's more value in being a member of ERA this year than there was last, then I think we're successful. How to get that? I think there's a whole bunch of things underneath it that we need to be successful on, in terms of training, in terms of all the other things we have to do. Um, one of the things I think are really the industry really struggles for is recruiting talent. It's not easy out there to recruit talent. So one of the things we have to say to ourselves is, how do we recruit talent in a marketplace that's not that sexy? And you know, I think things might get a little bit easier because unemployment's getting higher. But the reality is, we got to come up with ways to make what we do a little bit more sexy for people who want to come into the industry.
So I can tell you in Mr. Smith's 3 weeks at ERA, he will have been to three chapters. We were at the Cleveland chapter a couple of weeks ago. Eddie couldn't make it, but was scheduled to come in. We were at the Sager event last week, so I met a lot of the people from the Boston chapter. Ed is flying from Portland or wherever he is in Portland to Long Island tomorrow to visit the chapter and have a chapter event in Long Island. And then a week after next, we'll be at the New England chapter again to participate in their chapter event. So he's willing to travel, and for chapter leaders, invite him. He's got a big industry presence and would love to use him as a draw to get people to come to the chapter and hear right from the horse's mouth, what his vision is for ERA. Um, Eddie, any final thoughts? We're at 20 minutes of the hour. I don't, Claire and Kate, any other questions on the chat?
Yeah, the most probably important one for me, Walter, is for you know I can only be successful if all of you are involved. If all of you get involved in our February meetings, you get involved in local chapters. If you're involved, I'll be successful. If you're not involved, then we're not getting our job done. The reality is, we need you to help us be successful. So let me say in advance, thank you for the time that people put into it, but we definitely need you, um, uh, to be successful.
So I'm going to we just in the last few minutes. Anybody that didn't want to type a question, anybody that wants to unmute and ask a question or make a comment. I know Heidi has a comment on there. Uh, Eddie's the real deal, and we were blessed to have Ed take over the helm of VRA, and we're blessed to have him. He's a force, as Steve said. So anybody wants to unmute and say hello or ask a question of Ed, feel free.
Ed, Heidi here. Thank you so much. And Walter, thank you and your whole team, of course. But definitely reiterating what you said, all hands on deck. And just because there's someone who's not always in the field doesn't mean that we are not increasing revenue. That's why when inside sales and digital marketing for rep firms are mentioned, I think that really helps recruit new talent. So that's something I've been doing for our ERA Northwest, Pacific Northwest chapter. I work with Temco Northwest right now. I still work in the field, but it's just kind of changed. 20 years ago, you were 80% in the field, 20% your own inside sales person and marketing person. And now it can be kind of flipped around. So there was a great presentation with ERA from a rep firm about the kids are all right, recruiting zillennials, and we just need to keep up that momentum. Like you said, things are changing with the job market the way it is. And I believe in our industry. I believe in small business. And guys, I've made you can make money in remote high ticket sales and all this, the information economy. But when I can sit in a sales meeting and be called out, they say, well, we can't have you put anything polarizing in the background. I said, what do you find polarizing? They said, your American flag. And I say, have a nice day. Right? So this is why we love ERA and we love everyone around the world, but we do recognize that we're in America and we love small business.
Well, thank you, Eddie. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah. Anybody else have a comment?
Walter, I have one additional question since no one stepped up just yet. I'm going to move it back to EDU, Eddie, meaning education level, right? I hope I don't overstep my line here, but I think Spark at EDS has kind of lost its luster. And I'm not close enough to it, maybe. I had sent a couple people over the last couple of years, but is there thoughts that you may have, Walter, you may have already started something that would move to an ERA participation at the college level, undergrad and grad? And if it's already effective, I was unaware of it. I know what some suppliers possibly do, DigiKey for one, what it does. But any thoughts that reaching that level of young adults about this market that maybe ERA can present a different light?
Yeah, so one of the things that we did at Avnet, and I think the whole industry should do, is we used to have the teachers where we'd go visit the teachers and speak to their students. So the teachers want you to come in and teach their class. Nobody should be surprised by any of that. I think if we went and taught these teachers, and there's various particular universities that right, Texas A&M is one, Arizona State is another, but Michigan State, you can go on and on. There's probably 10 or 15. We should probably get our local chapters connected to those local things, right? I'll be more than happy to go in, bring the chapter president in, do a presentation on what is the electronics industry overall. Who do we sell to? How do we do that, right? Because these students, they don't know better unless we tell them. And the teachers aren't going to go say, hey, go join a manufacturer's rep firm, because they probably don't even think about it that way. But if we can show them a path of, hey, you go in, you do a good job, maybe someday you can even own the firm and you could have your own business. Look at the path that these other people who have done that. And if we can do that at the local colleges, when they come out, they will stay in a local area and go work for those people. So we used to do that at Avnet, where we had the local district manager go into the local college. I think we should do that at ERA. The local chapters should go into the local universities and tell them what the electronics industry is all about.
Do you see that expanding to the engineering schools like a Purdue, possibly, or a Northwestern, where some of those engineering students find their way into our business as opposed to our customers? Any thoughts in that direction?
Yeah, definitely. I think we got to pick what schools and what type of people we want to hire, right? So if you want to hire engineers, you want to be at Purdue, you want to be at the good engineering schools. If you want the supply chain people, then you want to be at A&M, like I said, ASU. And so we should go pick which schools we want to go, get hooked up with a teacher in that local market. And if you think about it, it makes the teacher more valuable in the school when they can get jobs for their students, right? So,
Steve and Eddie, we were at Purdue last week as ERA at their career fair.
Awesome.
The career fair, yeah. So there's an integrated business and engineering degree there. And that's
why I ask. Yeah.
Hosted us.
Yeah.
So we were explaining it's cool technology. It's an engineer selling technical sales. So we're there, and we're just look forward to Eddie helping us expand that even more.
Yeah, the more schools we can hit, the more opportunities we have to recruit them.
Eddie, I'll finish off, then I'll offer to ERA, just like I did to Walter. We have an extensive research program that goes on every year with the engineering schools, like about 120 of them in the U.S. I will give that to you, and maybe that'll help spur some ideas and thoughts. And maybe Ellen, I'll send it to you so you could see that.
Yeah, that'd be great, because Ellen, I know, runs that part of the ERA for us. So,
I didn't know that. Ellen, I'll reach out to you separately.
Yeah, no problem. That
Awesome.
sounds great. Thank you for all the help. Yep.
You're welcome.
But I know, sitting in front of those students, right? I've had many times, Steve, where a student at the end of the day comes up to me and says, "Hey, I'm graduating in 4 months. Do you know where I can get a job?" Right?
Yeah, I was just talking to three engineering schools. Purdue was one. Ellen, I wish I would have known, but a couple others. And there's definitely questions bubbling up during the courses about what am I going to be working? What markets are available for me? And there was a bit of struggle. A couple of professors kind of had told me they struggled to kind of give guidance in that direction. That shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be the case. So, okay,
we should make a formalized program out of it for Ellen and the team, and then go expand it so that to get the resources we can to help, right? The information you're talking about and other things. So
Yes, sir. Thank you.
sounds like a
Thank
good
you.
idea.
Ellen, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, Rick Dale, you have a comment in the chat. Did you want to stand on that or? Rick,
Rick
Rick,
is
are you
on.
there?
Rick Dale?
I'm trying to unmute. Sorry, everybody.
All right.
I had a friend that's an instructor in the engineering department at Grand Canyon University. So she connected us recently with the director of career services there. We got an appointment there tomorrow. So we're going to reach out to that technical staff over there and see. We have some ideas about how to do it as the ERA as opposed to an individual rep firm, bring value to our membership.
Yeah, I think if you do it as ERA, and then, obviously you got to look out for your rep firm too.
Yep.
When you go find those 5 or 6 kids, we can send out something to all the rep firms and say, hey, we have 5 or 6. I actually know somebody who's
Exactly.
looking for somebody in the Arizona market. So if you find somebody, let me know.
I actually connected a Purdue student with Northern Cal chapter. I've got another one for Connecticut, and then Chicago connected me with one as well. So it's working, and I think the chapters are going to need maybe it's a delegate thing that we need to talk about in October. That's their mission, is to help with that connection. So
You know what? Maybe we can do, Ellen. Maybe we can put on the website what I would call an opportunity board for the kids. Here are some opportunities that you can take a look at in different states, and maybe we don't have to out the rep firm.
yeah, we've talked about that in the past. There's some pros and cons to that, but we can definitely talk through that as well.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Claire, Kate, any other comments? Anybody else want to make a comment? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up.
Nothing else in the chat unless
I
anyone
know
wants
Eddie's got to get on a plane to fly to an exotic island, Long Island.
Hey, I got to fly to New York and straighten out what's going on at the UN today.
Well, just if you allowed me, welcome Ed. He is well known in Mexico, been working in the Mexico market, Latin American market for many, many years. So we are thrilled to have you as our president, and welcome to Mexico as well.
Thank you, and
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Awesome.
Okay, well, if not, I know Ed's got to get a plane. He's sitting at the airport. Claire and Kate, we'll turn it back over to you and wrap it up. But thanks everybody for your time, attention, and courtesy. And we'll turn it back over to Claire.
Okay. Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Eddie, for this great session. It was great to get to know more about you, Eddie. I know everyone appreciated your time today. The recording of this session will be posted on our website and our YouTube channel within the next 24 hours. The next ERA Live will take place on Tuesday, October 28th at 4:15 p.m. Eastern. And the topic, which was a hot topic today, will be college recruitment, some advice and tactical tips for job fairs and other ways to find new talent. So stay tuned for more details on that. And thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Claire.